Ian Paice did not go away. During decades, Deep Purple went through many singers and musicians, split into groups, came back together, and then fell apart again. But he stayed. Sitting behind the drums, he kept the band's heartbeat steady like the engine of a big machine that never stopped. He didn't say much and didn't need to rebel. The record covers didn't make him look like the star. He didn't cause the issue. No fights in public, no guitars being set on fire, and no hotel room damage. But this guy with the round glasses and steady beat was the last person to play on stage with Deep Purple and the only member to play on every record from 1968 to the present. A lot of drummers his age were after speed, flash, and thunder, but Ian Paice went in a different direction. Longevity, with accuracy and grace. Somewhat of a quiet hero. A person who made the rock world bow its head without needing the attention. Join us as we look into the life of a drummer, a man who actually beat history into being, and someone whose loyalty is rare in the world of music. Born on June 29, 1948, in Nottingham, England, Ian Anderson Paice came from a working-class family that loved music but didn't dare dream. His father, a skilled pianist who used to play on stage, quit to help support the family. As a guitarist, he had to play gigs and bars on the weekends to make extra cash. His sacrifice may have been what helped him see the spark of fire in his son's eyes. Ian Paice had no plans to be a rock star when he was a kid. It wasn't a drum that he held for the first time. It was a fiddle. He learned to play it from a very young age because it was the only instrument in the house. Feeling wasn't right, though. Not wanting to play the violin. He meant for it to get hit. Flowing tunes didn't interest the boy. His hunger was for something strong, mechanical, and deadly. A way to say something that didn't need words. While laughing, Ian once said, "I quickly found out I liked hitting the violin more than playing it." It wasn't a music book that made them want to do that. It was inspired by old Hollywood black and white movies. Ian had a lot of trouble sleeping and would often find himself in front of the TV, mesmerized by the sight of black drummers playing like their lives depended on every strike. Sounds weren't the only thing. Picture it. Movement, gut feeling, or something honest and pure. After turning 11, the boy started putting together his own drums out of whatever he could find. Metallic boxes, bits of wood, pot lids, and old biscuit tins were all turned into instruments. He used his mom's knitting needles as drumsticks after stealing them. It wasn't clear what to do or where to practice. All he had was a steady beat in his head and hands. It wasn't rebellion. It was a strong drive that you couldn't explain. Inside him, something told him, "This is how I live." We weren't paying much attention at first in the family. They thought the phase would soon end. But after 3 years of Ian playing the drums every day without stopping or getting bored, his dad realized this wasn't a hobby. I felt called to do it. It was a big deal at the time, but he spent £32 on Ian's first real drum kit. Although dreams don't always shine like paint, things kept breaking apart on the cheap kit. Ian really didn't like the sound at all. Nevertheless, he did not give up. Forever. He kept learning how to control the noise, make it flow, and make each hit communicate. At that point, music became like blood to his hands, and he's never been the same since. Beginners in their careers. Ian Paice began making a living playing the drums when he was still a teenager. There were no books or schools. He got all of his ideas from gut, his ears, and practicing by himself for hours and hours until his hands were raw. While other people studied theory, Ian listened to old jazz songs and tried to play like Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, and Louis Bellson, whose swing rhythms were complicated and whose fluid strokes gave them freedom. He learned from all of them through records and tapes. He started performing music professionally when he was 16 years old. He played with the Shindigs, his first band, at fairs, bars, weddings, and any other event that paid. That's where he learned to keep time for other people, read a crowd, and fit in without being too much. For a drummer, those were the most important things to keep alive. After that, Ian quickly joined a band called MI5, which was later renamed the Maze. They were a beat group that mostly played in Europe. They visit Germany, France, and Belgium playing popular pop rock music. It's true that the Maze wasn't a big name in 1960s music, but that's where Ian met Rod Evans, the man who would lead him to the door called Deep Purple. Even though the Maze put out a few songs that didn't do well, Ian saw those years as his real college years. It taught him how to live on the road, deal with tough tour plans, work with others, and accept failure. When he was 18 or 19, Most people his age were still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives. But Ian Paice was a traveling drummer across Europe, trying to make it in a musical era that was changing quickly. Then one night, fate showed up in the strangest way. The lead singer of the band The Maze, Rod Evans, chose to try out for a new group called Roundabout. This was only a temporary name. It would soon be changed to Deep Purple. Paice went with a friend and wasn't trying out. But when they got there, the drummer for the band, Bobby Woodman, wasn't happy with the direction of the group and wasn't interested. After Woodman left the test in the middle of it, Paice was asked to take over. He didn't have to practice or do anything else to play the sticks the way he always did. Later, Richie Blackmore would say that he saw a drummer who never missed a beat at that very moment, even if everything falls apart around him. It all started like that. Not with a $1 million deal, not on the Wembley stage, but in a dirty London practice room with a 19-year-old drummer playing every beat like his life depended on it. In his first test with Deep Purple, Ian Paice didn't play like he was trying out for a band. He played as if he had been a part of it for a long time, before it had a name. Richie Blackmore, who was one of Britain's most sought-after musicians, nodded right away. Soon after, Blackmore said, "He's not flashy, but you can't ignore the pull of his groove." No one thought the group of outcasts in Deep Purple would go very far when they started playing together in 1968. Richie Blackmore on guitar, John Lord playing classical music, Rod Evans singing lead, and up-and-coming drummer Ian Paice. The band could have someone else play, but not Ian Paice. When Deep Purple's N-Rock came out in 1970, they came out of the trippy fog and helped shape what would become British hard rock. They made up the famous Golden Triangle with Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. The one thing that Deep Purple had that the other two didn't include was speed. He didn't just play drums in the background. He played after the singer like a second tail. In Child in Time, a scary, bloody ballad, there is a breakdown in the middle with cymbals that fall half a second slower, making the whole room feel like it's being squeezed. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone was able to time his drums so that it sounded like he was in sync with the heartbeat of the listener. With Fireball, 1971, Paice made a big step forward in technology. They used Keith Moon's bass drum in the studio because one pedal wasn't strong enough for the first double bass drum opening in hard rock history. The song Fireball didn't just cut through the air with its loud beginning. A new age began in which speed, power, and emotion were no longer separate. Machine Head went viral in 1972 with songs like Smoke on the Water, Highway Star, and Space Truckin', which are now taught in schools. But you had to listen to the live record made in Japan from the same year to understand what kept Deep Purple going. It has a drum solo by Ian Paice that lasts more than 10 minutes. There is no flash or showboating, just beat falling like a huge machine's heavy breath. Though you may forget the lyrics or guitar riffs, that beat will stay with you all night. Starting in 1973, Deep Purple started to fall apart. Roger Glover and Ian Gillan did not come back. It now has David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. Richie Blackmore got angry and started the band Rainbow. Tommy Bolin took his place, but later died of a drug overdose. Deep Purple was like a ship at sea. It changed leaders and went off course. Despite everything, Ian Paice never left. It wasn't because he had no other choice. Whitesnake called out to me. Moore was interested in him. John Lennon needed a drummer, too. Ian Paice stayed, though, because he thought he was the only one who could keep the band's spirit alive. He did it in silence. There shouldn't be any arguments, comments, or ego games. He sat behind the drum kit, where no one looked, in a time when everyone yelled to be seen. But if he stopped, everything fell apart. In 1984, the Mark II group got back together. Nobody thought Perfect Strangers would be very popular, but they were. It wasn't because they missed old times, but because the band had found its heart again, and Ian Paice's rhythms kept that heart going. The Battle Rages On, Perpendicular, Now What, and Whoosh are some of the songs that have been released since then. Deep Purple have kept making music and going on tours around the world. Paice plays the drums every night for 2 hours, even though he is in his 70s. In 2016, he had a small stroke that made him have to cancel shows for the first time ever. Some people thought he should stop, but he was back on stage the very next month. Still the beating, still Ian Paice. Fans have always felt the same way about Fireball, Vincent Price, Hush, Smoke on the Water, and Smoke. For Deep Purple, That sound is still their soul that can't be replaced. Life outside of music. A lot of rock stars his age were into drugs, sex, scandals, and million-dollar divorces. But Ian Paice quietly picked a different path. There are no highlights, headlines, or reasons given. Simply a full, private, and cozy life. Like the way he played the drums. Never flashy, but so solid that nothing else could replace it. He got married to Jackie Paice, who had been his partner since the start of his work. What's interesting is that Jackie knows people in Deep Purple. Vicki Lord is her twin sister. Vicki was married to the late John Lord, who co-founded Deep Purple and was Ian's closest bandmate. When Deep Purple was at its worst, these two parallel marriages were once seen as the steady heartbeats that kept the band from breaking up for good. 3 kids, James, Emmy, and Callie, were born to him and Jackie. But unlike many rock star families, Paice didn't let anyone know anything about his kids. There won't be any family pictures, tabloid stories, or rumors online. They weren't on the pages of any magazines. His job was to take them to school. This was an easy choice that said a lot. The late Ian Paice never said he was a moral example, but he quietly lived in a way that many people in the business admire, with honesty, consistency, and without stepping on others to get ahead. He was once quoted as saying, "Family makes me who I am, but music is what I do." Even more than his own family, he looked out for others. In addition to protecting his own family, he helped keep other families safe. The most real way. They started the Sunflower Jam charity with other people in 2006. It raises money for kids with cancer and supports non-invasive treatments that aren't surgery. Noted performers like Robert Plant, Brian May, Bruce Dickinson, and Paul Weller have attended. While some drummers got lost in the light of the stage, Paice kept playing every night. Then he and his wife did charity work in the mornings before going back to their small English country home in Paice, where the only sounds were children laughing and leaves moving in the backyard. Even though it's not a very interesting story, Ian Paice is unique in the crazy world of rock and roll because of it. He got famous without rebelling. All he had to do was be himself. Life now. Most famous musicians his age have retired, gone into seclusion, or become pale shadows of their former selves. But Ian Paice still sits behind the drum kit every night for Deep Purple on stage, just like he has for more than 50 years. Although he doesn't jump around during shows like he did in the Made in Japan days, his drumming hasn't gotten worse. Not at all. It's gotten tighter and heavy, and more upset than ever. The method isn't used to get faster anymore. Now it means complete power, the kind that can only be gained by going on thousands of tour nights and millions of strikes. "I'm not playing to show anything anymore," Paice said. "Playing makes me feel something." After having a small stroke in 2016, which was his first real setback as a singer, a lot of people thought he might quit. No, not really. He went back to the stage the next month like nothing had happened. Deep Purple kept touring and putting out new records, and Paice was still the most important part of it all. Suddenly, whoosh. 2020, moving on to Crime. 2021 came out. Fans let out a sigh of relief. These people, including Paice, were still here. Everything seemed unclear after the pandemic, but his constant presence became a sign of strength, loyalty, and the will to keep going. He doesn't stream live or have a blog or use social media. Going on stage and playing the drums is all he does every night. He does, however, sometimes show up at drum workshops and fan meetups to teach people how to play the drums better and how to take care of hands that have been playing for over 50 years. There is no teaching or feeling better than others, just an experienced craftsman passing on the flame to the next generation. The 2024 Deep Purple Tour, called Equals One More Time, began in August in the US as a co-headlining show with the legendary prog band Yes. No one saw this coming, but it worked out surprisingly well. It was a live statement, not just a tour. There is still life and energy in classic hard rock, and Ian Paice is still its beating heart. For example, the tour stopped in Camden, Homedale, Saratoga Springs, Wantagh, and Bethel. Fans came not only to relive the good old days, but also to feel Paice's tight, clean drums once more. Deep Purple played at their home city's O2 Arena in November of that year. That night is now famous. Ian Paice played on a big stage like it was still the Machine Head era. He had silver hair, round glasses, and a soft smile, and nearly 20,000 fans cheered for him after every solo. Instead of taking a break after a long tour, Paice and Deep Purple announced early in 2025 that they would be making a new studio record and going on another world tour that would last until 2026. Paice said, "We don't see any reason to stop," in an hour-long talk with Rob Cass. "As long as the drums keep beating, we'll keep going." New tour dates are being announced. Sao Paulo, Brazil, Tbilisi, Georgia, Dubai, UAE, proof that their music isn't just alive in the West, but thriving worldwide. And on every one of those stages, the one man who's kept the rhythm since day one will still be in his rightful place. Ian Paice. Beyond performing, he continues to engage through drum clinics, podcasts, and Q&A sessions, where he shares not just drumming skills, but his philosophy of life, endurance, humility, and unwavering loyalty to music. No one calls him an inspiration, yet every time he strikes the drum, a new generation quietly learns something, without a word spoken. Today, Ian Paice lives with his wife in England, in a home not far from London, close to nature and far from noise. He spends his time with family, supports charity through the Sunflower Jam, occasionally visits the studio, or prepares for the next tour. And every time Deep Purple takes the stage, whether in Tokyo, Munich, or Buenos Aires, fans know one thing for certain. That beat will come in, right on time, never late. Because Ian Paice never stops. And he has no intention of ever doing so. Legacy and influence. In the world of rock, where names often echo with scandal, controversy, and rebellion, Ian Paice built his legacy through precision, consistency, and silence. He didn't need to shout to prove himself. He didn't need to break every boundary to get noticed. He simply stayed in time for over half a century. To drummers, the name Ian Paice is synonymous with speed, control, and a swing-infused jazz feel woven into the heart of heavy rock. He is one of the very few left-handed drummers to play on a left-handed kit, yet he never sounded offbeat. On the contrary, it gave birth to a rhythm that was uniquely his own, with deliberate delay and emotional accents no one else could replicate. Paice doesn't play drums like a boxer. He plays like a sculptor, carving space with rhythm. His double bass work on tracks like Fireball, Space Truckin', or even the long silences in Child in Time all reveal one thing. He doesn't play to sound good. He plays to move people. At his peak, Paice's single-stroke technique was compared to jazz icon Buddy Rich. He could deliver 8 double strokes per hand per second with a single pedal, something only drummers like Dave Lombardo or Mike Mangini dare dream of. But Ian Paice isn't just Deep Purple's drummer. He's a direct inspiration to later icons. Lars Ulrich, Metallica, once said Paice was the reason he picked up the drums. Chad Smith, Red Hot Chili Peppers, learned spatial awareness from watching him. Joey Jordison, Slipknot, called him the definitive rock drummer of all time. He doesn't belong to a movement. He doesn't top flashy lists. Paice is the drummer real drummers study when they want to learn how to master the strike. Throughout 55 years of performing, no one has ever seen Ian Paice involved in a public feud. While Deep Purple weathered endless lineup changes, open rifts, and verbal battles among Gillan, Blackmore, Coverdale, Hughes, Paice remained the one man who never spoke ill of anyone. He didn't pick sides. He didn't form cliques. He never retaliated through the media. He just kept playing. To fans, he is a legend. To his bandmates, he is the unwavering anchor. To the world of rock, he is living proof that you can be great without sacrificing your dignity. Ian Paice's legacy doesn't lie in any single album. Not just in Smoke on the Water, Burn, or Perfect Strangers. It lies in 56 uninterrupted years. Over 3,000 live shows, never missing a beat. It lies in this. When people ask, who is Deep Purple, there are many answers. But when they ask, who never left, there is only one, Ian Paice. He's not the first name you hear when people talk about rock, but he's the one who never disappeared. A symbol who never needed to be called a symbol. A legend who never had to claim the title. Through silence, endurance, and millisecond perfect precision, Ian Paice built one of the most quietly powerful musical legacies of our time. In an era rushing and roaring toward noise, Paice teaches us this. Some greatness doesn't need to explode. Some great people simply never fall out of rhythm. And when the final spotlight dims, what remains won't be scandal or media chaos. It will be the steady beat, persistent, loyal on time, just like the life he lived. Ian Paice, the last timekeeper, and perhaps the last to truly keep himself. Do you find yourself holding your breath when the drums and smoke on the water begin? Do you believe the greatest artist is the one who keeps rhythm so others can shine? Share your thoughts on Ian Paice or tell us who is the timekeeper in your life. Leave a comment below. Share this piece if it moved you. And remember, music never dies. As long as there are hearts like his keeping the beat.